This episode is brought to you by Aroma Deus. Looking for the perfect scent for the perfect occasion?
Visit aromadeus.com, where you'll find hundreds of perfume samples all in one place. That's aromadeus.com.
In the dead of a quiet Iowa night in June 1912, a small town drifted to sleep. Families tucked in, lights out, doors unlocked in the trusting Heartland way. By morning, the Moore House at 508 East 2nd Street held only silence and horror. 8 people, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 young children, and 2 overnight innocent guests, bludgeoned beyond recognition in their beds with a single axe. Cloths draped over faces like a final mocking mercy. Mirrors covered, a slab of bacon left strangely in the parlor. The killer vanished into the dawn, leaving behind one of America's most chilling, unsolved mysteries. On this episode, we step into the Villisca Axe Murder House and ask the question that still echoes over a century later. Who walked through that front door with an axe in hand? And why has justice never caught up?
That is criminal.
What's good, everybody? I am Dave Jari.
And I'm Casey Moore.
And today, we're going to be discussing the Villisca Axe Murders, where in 1912, a family of 6 and their 2 young friends were brutally bludgeoned with an axe. But before we unleash the madness, a quick address.
Ooh.
Yes. We will be discussing all sorts of fucked up stories relating to true crime, history, current events, or whatever stories intrigue our minds. There will be doses of vulgarity, and if that offends you, hey, that's a you problem. Yeah. But if this is your vibe, welcome to the debauchery. There we go. So quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, where you will get both video and audio versions of this episode, as well as go to Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or wherever you stream this chaos. Drop a 5-star rating, leave a debauched positive review, and share with your unhinged friends. Casey.
Yes.
We are going to introduce a new segment to this episode.
We are.
Yes. And this is courtesy of Casey himself.
I actually,
came up with this idea.
You know, I'm maybe a little biased, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So
Casey
said, hey, why don't we do a dose of debauchery segment? I'm like, hey, that actually sounds like a...
Your eyes lit up.
Yeah, my eyes lit up. I was like...
With the potential.
Okay.
All the cool things we could do with
the
phrase dose of debauchery.
Dose of debauchery. Could be anything.
It could be anything. It could be funny stuff, serious stuff.
Serious stuff.
You know?
Yep. So today's dose of debauchery.
Yeah.
We are going to go to St. Petersburg, Florida. Okay.
Florida?
Yes.
Nothing ever happens in Florida.
Yeah. Not to be confused with the Florida man.
The Florida man.
This is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dose of debauchery.
Yeah.
Okay. So back in April of 2023, a father who was celebrating his 21st birthday, right? Joyous occasion.
Father celebrating his 21st birthday.
Yes. Went on to stab his girlfriend 100 times, killing her.
Wow.
But wait, there's more. He allegedly threw his 2-year-old son into a lake to be eaten by alligators. Yeah.
What's wrong with this guy?
I don't know. There you go. So the body of 2-year-old Talon Mosley was discovered in the jaws of an alligator, while his mother, Passion Jeffrey, was found dead from more than 100 stab wounds, according to an arrest affidavit, still can't get that word right, obtained by People. Now, Thomas Mosley, 21, allegedly stabbed his girlfriend, Passion Jeffrey, 100 times after she threw him a party celebrating his birthday.
Wow.
That's the thanks she gets.
Yeah.
After that, police believe Mosley allegedly threw the couple's 2-year-old son into Lake Maggiore, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in St. Petersburg before arriving at his mother's house with severe lacerations to his arms and hands. Now, Mosley's defense attorney, Margaret Russell, said in a statement to People, due to the extreme serious allegations surrounding these tragic losses, our investigation is currently focused on gathering information about the facts and circumstances of the case, as well as our client's mental state. Yes. Now, police believe that Passion Jeffrey was left for dead on the bathroom floor after the brutal stabbing. Her body was discovered by apartment management, who went to check on her at the request of her family, who said they had not heard from her since the previous day. A bloody footprint in cleaning solution was found, along with a bloody fingerprint in the apartment. And after the alleged murders, police say Mosley admitted himself into an area hospital where he was treated for his wounds. Talen's body was found later that day in the mouth of an alligator. Was not a great death.
No.
Not that there is a great death. But
Right.
Now, her family says, I want people to remember Passion and Talen as two kids who absolutely loved each other, according to her great aunt. Adjusting without them in life is going to be hard. Talen was a sweet and happy toddler and loved his mom. During Passion's work breaks, she would FaceTime so that she could spend every available moment with him. During the day, Talen would grab anyone's phone and pretend to call his mom while she was at work. To see them together and their love for each other was a blessing. Now, since the murders, Thomas Mosley has had multiple hearings to determine whether or not he was fit to stand trial. As of June 2024, he was still in a mental health facility, but a quick search of the Florida inmate lookup shows that as of March 2025, he was in custody of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
A county in Florida.
Yeah, a county in Florida, where St. Petersburg is. Was in custody of them on 2 counts of first-degree murder, and as of right now, his case is still pending.
Yeah, hopefully the county and the prosecutors will push for the maximum that they can get out of this guy.
Right.
Just the thing that stands out to me is it seems like maybe he was trying to cover it up a little bit with the cleaning stuff in the bathroom and the bloody footprint and all that stuff and all those things. I don't know if he's going to try to like claim some level of like self-defense because he had maybe he had defensive wounds.
Right.
I don't know how you justify that with the kid.
Yeah, I don't know.
You threw the kid out of a window, and so I'm not really sure what the approach here is.
Into the lake.
Other than just pleading guilty and owning up to your horrific crime. It's too bad. It sounds like they were two just innocent people.
Yeah. Yep. Having a birthday party.
Taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
100 stab wounds is crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. So the stuff that I saw that as of June 2024, he had up to 2 to 3 hearings, right? And he was actually being held in a mental health facility. So he wasn't like in prison.
Right.
But, like I said, I did the lookup thing, and it looks like he is in county jail at least.
I mean, if he had some kind of like mental break, I would be really curious to know what that is and how it would drive someone to do something as crazy as this, where you stab someone 100 times and then throw your baby boy out the window to be eaten by an alligator.
Right. I don't know if it's going to stand because, like you said, in order for innocent by reason of insanity or whatever, or any type of mental health plea, for that to stand up, you have to prove without a doubt that the moments leading up to, including the murder and after, you did not know right from wrong. Right. But the cleaning supplies kind of shows, that you knew you did something fucked up. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is a dose of debauchery.
Yeah.
Totally horrific crime. Like wild. Yeah, this is maybe something we'll have to revisit once they
kind of see like
once he has a trial and you see it, like you hear more of the evidence and what was done. I mean, as of right now, it seems like there's only one person that knows. Right. And he's currently in county jail or whatever. Yep. So
hopefully he'll get
hopefully the family gets justice, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
That is a crazy story.
It is. Very, very debauched.
Very debauched, yeah.
But so let's talk about what we came here to talk about today.
I'm excited about as excited as one can be about murders, right? Especially like cold case murders.
Yeah.
For some people that's infuriating.
Cold
cases where there's no conclusion.
Right.
I, for
one, I need an ending. I need to know like what I need to walk away from something
knowing like that's the guy that did
Right.
it, or that's the person that did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I there's something exciting about trying to get to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, like if you have an obsessive personality
Right.
where like, I could see myself as a detective.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go crazy, to be honest, if I was a detective and I couldn't solve the case. Like I'd end up in a nut house because but there would be something thrilling about trying to put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
What am I missing? What, I'd just be constantly revisiting the scene and,
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we're going to talk about is how difficult, right from the get-go, this case was going to be.
Oh yeah,
it's a mess.
Yeah, and it's like, especially with these older cold cases that were hundreds of years ago, like they had nothing.
Right.
You had nothing. You had to hope that basically like somebody confessed or whatever, or you just, I don't know,
Or
got lucky with
caught
something.
them red-handed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They had
Otherwise-
nothing, So, but it's just, it's cool to kind of see where we are today and then look at how things were back then.
Yeah.
And just how big of an uphill battle they had
Yep.
when it came to solving crimes. It's amazing that they ever solved any crimes, to be honest.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. Because, like, I was watching a special on serial killers, and, the decade of the serial killer was 1970.
Yeah.
Like how difficult it was to even, like, string any of these murders together. There wasn't even a 911 system yet.
Right.
Like, they had nothing.
Yeah.
Other than gumshoe work.
Yeah. And they had some fingerprint stuff, but not everybody had their fingerprints on record.
Yep.
And so, like, then you're trying to pull things from the scene, and, like, that's kind of clunky how they lift fingerprints and compare them, like literally visually compare them.
Yeah.
Because, now we have
Right.
like technology that does it or even better now, we have DNA and there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
They can basically track all of your movements, everybody's so interconnected. So if these crimes, weren't connected in any way, like, typically, if there's a murder or something, it's like, who do you look at first?
Yeah.
The spouse or the boyfriend or whatever,
Yeah.
or
someone
the
in there.
girlfriend or whatever,
Yeah.
Trying to be fair here.
Right.
But yeah, that's, typically what you look for because that's kind of where a lot of crimes start.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have no connection to the people and you're just wandering through town as a stranger and you just pop in and are like, I'm just going to commit some murder today and then take off.
And then leave.
Even today, that would be kind of tough to solve, but let alone back then,
Yeah.
So, and who knows what happened? There's so many cool things in this story and so many possibilities,
Yeah. Before we jump in, I was watching this thing on BTK, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of like talk about like evidence and stuff like that, The first murders happened back in 1974. Okay. There was nothing. There was no DNA. Nobody even knew what DNA was.
Right.
Right. And it just so happened that at this scene, there was a glob of liquid at the feet of the
glob.
Yeah. Of the girl.
That's an interesting
of the Otero
descriptive
family.
word.
Yeah. And they just had the foresight to get a pillowcase and cut the pillowcases into little squares. And they actually dabbed the glob
On the pillowcase.
And saved that little patch, which ultimately 30 years later helped catch the killer.
Yeah.
Other than his stupidity. But yeah, it's just wild. Like, even back then, somebody
never
had the
get over
forefront to.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, good on them. Whoever that person was, they deserve a promotion or a raise or whatever.
If they're still alive.
If they're still alive. Yeah. Or at least that like a firm handshake.
Yeah. At a boy, at a girl, whatever.
But the whole floppy disk thing, I'll never get over that.
Yeah. He's an idiot. Anyway, good thing he's an idiot.
Yes, good thing.
All right. So let's get into this Villisca story.
Yeah,
here.
sorry, we're going on a rant there.
So, again, in the dead of a quiet Iowa night in June 1912, a small town drifted to sleep. By morning, the Moore house held only silence.
No relation.
No relation.
No relation to me.
No.
Or actually, you know what? We should say there is a relation to me.
Oh, there you
This
go.
is my
Make it a little bit more
immediate
interesting.
family. Yeah.
This story holds dear to my heart.
Yes.
Yes. So the house held only silence and horror. 8 people, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and 2 guests, bludgeoned beyond recognition. Now the cloth draped over their faces like a final mocking mercy. Mirrors covered, a slab of bacon left strangely in the parlor. The killer vanished into the dawn. Get your mind right, dim the lights, because once you hear this story, you may never sleep quite the same again. Kind of like you last night.
It's funny because like a couple things. Like obviously you knew we were doing the show today, and we've been researching it for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
And we put a little bit into this, and hopefully it'll show in the episode. But as I was before bed, it was late. I was like, all right, I want to refresh my memory, and so I went through a lot of our stuff and just read some things, and I'm getting ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of late, quiet night, whatever, and I'm just laying there, and I'm just thinking about the story of this family going to bed. It's safe in their home, after church and all that.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, like, I have an axe in my shed. Somebody could be just chilling in my shed right now.
Yep.
I wouldn't know anything of it. I'm just here doing my thing, peacefully waiting to drift off to sleep.
Yep.
And then I do. And then next thing you know,
That's it.
I'm getting my face smashed in with my own rusty dull axe.
Yep.
So, yeah, it definitely entered my mind how vulnerable we are when we're sleeping at night.
You're sleeping.
You know? And I don't know about you, but when I sleep, I am dead to the world.
Yeah.
Like a missile could go off next to me and I wouldn't wake up.
Right.
So yeah, it is a little bit, if it's in the back of your mind when you're in that situation, especially after hearing a story like this.
Yeah. All right. So the sun rose over Villisca, Iowa on Sunday, June 9th, 1912, with a soft golden light of early summer filtering through the lace curtains in the Moore home. The air outside carried the rich, earthy scent of freshly turned soil from nearby fields, mingled with a sharp tang of coal smoke drifting from the chimneys and the faint sweetness of blooming lilacs along the fence lines. Inside the two-story, white three-bedroom farmhouse located at 508 East 2nd Street, a modest but well-kept place with creaking wooden floors, plaster walls painted soft cream, and simple furnishings polished by years of care, Josiah Joe Moore stirred first. Joe, broad shoulders and callous from years in the implement business, pulled on his boots with the familiar squeak of leather. The kitchen range still held warmth from the night before. He stoked it, the iron door clanging softly as coals shifted and flared. The aroma of percolating coffee soon rose, dark and bitter, blending with the sizzle of bacon in the cast iron skillet Sarah would soon tend. Upstairs, floorboards groaned faintly as the children woke, small feet paddling, sleeping voices murmuring. Sarah Moore moved through the morning with quiet purpose. Her apron strings tied snug, she cracked eggs into a bowl, the sharp crack echoing in a still house, yolks breaking with a soft pop. Oatmeal bubbled on the stove, thick and steaming, releasing a warm, nutty fragrance that filled the room. She hummed fragments of hymns. What a friend we have in Jesus. Her voice low and steady, while sunlight slanted across the oilcloth-covered table, catching motes of dust in lazy spirals. The children tumbled down the narrow staircase in a rush of energy. 11-year-old Herman, tall for his age, carried the scent of hay and horse from morning chores, his hands still faintly gritty. 10-year-old Mary twirled in her Sunday dress, the cotton whispering against her legs, her laughter bright and high as she teased her younger brothers. 7-year-old Boyd and 5-year-old Paul chased each other around the kitchen table, bare feet slapping the linoleum, their giggles punctuated by mock war whoops. The house rang with their voices, the clatter of tin cups, the scrape of chairs being pulled out. Breakfast plates clinked as they ate, fluffy scrambled eggs flecked with pepper, crisp bacon leaving grease shine on their fingers, warm bread slathered with butter that melted instantly. Conversation flowed easily, Joe's pride in the upcoming Children's Day program, Sarah reminding the children to sit still during their recitations, Catherine bubbling about, inviting friends to stay over. Dressed in starched white shirts and pressed skirts, the family stepped into the warm afternoon. The June air felt gentle on the skin, temperatures in the comfortable 70s, with the light breeze rustling leaves and carrying distant sounds of horse hooves on dirt roads and church bells tolling faintly. They walked the 3 blocks to the Presbyterian church, shoes crunching on the gravel and the children's hands swinging their parents. The church interior smelled of fresh varnish on new pews, polished wood, and the faint mustiness of hymnals stacked in the racks. Sunlight poured through clear windows, warming the plain oak floors. Sarah at the piano played opening chords that rang clear and bright. Children filed forward for their parts. Voices rose in song, high, earnest trebles singing, Jesus Loves Me, accompanied by the soft thump of small feet keeping time. Catherine recited her verse with clear enunciation, cheeks flushed with pride. Herman stood straight, backed, voice steady. The little boys fidgeted, toes curling in their shoes, but beamed when applause rippled through the congregation. Reverend George Kelly, the visiting preacher, sat among the pews, his presence unremarkable, then just another face in the crowd. As the program drew to a close around 9:30 p.m., the summer dusk settled over Villisca. Lanterns flickered to life along the streets. Mary Catherine, flushed with excitement from the evening, approached her friends, Ina May and Lena Stillinger, daughters of a local family. Would they like to spend the night? The invitation was eagerly accepted. Outside, twilight had deepened into a velvet blue, stars beginning to prick the sky. Crickets chirped in rhythmic waves. A dog barked somewhere down the street. The group, Joe and Sarah, their 4 children, and now Ina and Lena, flushed and excited from the evening, walked home together. Shoes scuffed softly on the path. Children's voices carried snippets of the songs they'd sung. Laughter bubbling up at remembered mishaps. The night air had cooled slightly, carrying the clean, green smell of cut grass and the distant lowing of cattle. They reached the house between 9:45 and 10 p.m. The front door latch clicked open, unlocked, as was common in trusting Villisca. Inside, kerosene lamps were lit with soft hiss and pop, casting warm, flickering pools of light across wallpaper walls and rag rugs. The parlor smelled faintly of lemon oil polish and the lingering sweetness of Sarah's earlier baking. Upstairs, beds were turned down, sheets crisp and cool to the touch, pillows plumped. Downstairs in the guest room off the parlor, extra quilts were spread for the Stillinger girls. Their giggles floated up the stairs as they settled. Joe checked the doors one last time, the bolt sliding home with a solid thunk, or perhaps not. Memory varies. Sarah kissed each child goodnight, her lips brushing warm foreheads. The faint scent of lavender soap on her skin. Lamps were extinguished one by one, leaving only the soft glow of moonlight through the windows. Whispers faded into sighs. The house settled. Crickets outside, the only steady sound. The Moore family and their guests drifted into sleep. Dreams of summer days ahead, school ending, church picnics, the simple pace of small-town life. No one heard the quiet creak of a door or the soft tread of footsteps in the dark, unaware that by morning the house would stand silent, its ordinary rhythms broken forever.
Wow.
Bam!
Wasn't that cool?
That was cool.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, for one, like the whole time I'm listening to this, right? Like, I'm thinking, man, what a perfect life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you imagine, you know, just a simple, like, peaceful way of living, like, for the most part, like, that's probably what comes to memory.
Yeah, when people think of the, you know, the white picket fence,
the white
family,
picket fence, the nice house with the family and the friends and the delicious, you know, freshly made breakfast and the, you know, the community, the community, the touch of your mom or your dad and everything that they give you and all that stuff. And it's like, you know, the clean sheets and your brothers and sisters are doing their thing and like just all these, you know, the warm sunlight coming in through the windows and everything. It's like, you know, just really, you know, paints a picture and it's like, you know, puts you in like a good feel and it makes you excited about things to come, the future and what the summer is going to bring. And, you know,
anticipation.
Hanging out with friends and getting lost in the woods and letting your imagination go wherever it takes you. You know, when you're a kid, you know, you think nothing bad can ever happen to you or nothing bad will happen to you. You're not even like, it doesn't even enter your mind.
Right.
You know, and your parents are always going to be there to protect you and do all these things. You know, it's just it's such a nice way to start such an awful story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it was just it was just a really cool and descriptive way to like paint the picture of kind of like who this family was. You know, like this very simple but loving, you know, family that was built into the community and had this you know, probably had a lot of things going for them. You know, just a good church going family that you know, just wanted to go about their day with no issues. You know, it was just you know, that was just one of the few things I took away from
that kind of stood out.
Yeah, just really like pleasant. You know how, you know, and if anything, for them, you know, I would maybe they think that you know, if they were gonna go out, like that's a good day to end it on. You know, you know, not that you would want to, especially not that you would want your kids to be in a situation where they get murdered. Yeah. Right. But like, it seemed like they had a really.
But if that was like
the
last day, then that would probably be the Norman Rockwell painting of the last day.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You know.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's little things in here too, like, you know, I like the hint at George Kelly just being another guy.
Yeah. Being some rando
in the crowd,
you know, traveling preacher,
enjoying some church services that the town has to offer.
And a name that will become familiar here pretty soon.
The town in Iowa, Villisca, I don't know how much we cover the background of the town, but it was a kind of a booming town. It you know, because they had brought in a railroad. And there was some industry there, and that really obviously was kind of an economic boom for them. And it really allowed you know, a small town to flourish. And that's kind of where Joe, you know, did well. He
branched out.
He started working for somebody, and then started his own like business, mainly dealing with John Deere. And you know, he was a good businessman, and he, like we said, he was ingrained in the community, had employees, was well liked, seemed by like everybody. Good family man, from what we can tell. You know, and the town was starting to, you know, pick up a little steam, and you know, and it wasn't a huge town. I think there was only 2,500 people or so that lived in the town, but so as of June 1912, things were looking pretty promising for the Moore family. They didn't have any reason to have a gloomy outlook on anything. You know, they didn't probably want for too much, and you know, they had a nice little farmhouse and everything, and good family, and kids had friends. You know, so never. I mean, I'd you know, be curious to know if Villisca had any real crime up to this point, besides like, you know, probably your typical petty theft or whatever. You know. You know, probably nothing like this. This was probably the talk of the town. Something this town probably has never experienced. You know, any murders for that matter. You know, but so what happens? What happened in that morning when everybody woke up, or not woke up? Let's start that over. So what happened? What happened on that morning? In the crisp dawn of June 10th, 1912. As the first rays of sun pierced the veil of night over Villisca, Iowa, Mary Peckham stirred from her slumber in her modest home next door to the Moores. A sturdy woman in her middle years, her calloused hands from years of tending gardens and livestock, Mary was the kind of neighbor who noticed the rhythms of rural life, the cluck of chickens, the lowing of cows, the distant chime of a church bell calling the faithful. But this morning, an unnatural hush blanketed the air, thick and oppressive, like the fog rolling in from the prairies. She stepped out onto her porch around 5 a.m., her apron dusted with flour from the bread she was planning to bake, intending to hang her laundry on the line that fluttered between their yards. The Moore house, a tidy white-framed structure with lace curtains framing the windows, stood eerily still. No smoke curled from the chimney. No children's laughter echoed from the upstairs room. No sign of Josiah Moore preparing his day at the implement store. Sarah Moore, ever the early riser, should have been bustling in the kitchen by now, her silhouette visible through the glass. Even the chickens scratched restlessly in their coop, unfed and forgotten. A prickle of unease crept up Mary's spine.
like the chill of an autumn wind out of season. She called out, her voice carrying across the dew-kissed grass. Sarah? Josiah? Time to rise and shine. Silence answered, broken only by the distant crow of a rooster. By 7 a.m., her worry had festered into action. She crossed the short distance between their homes, her boots crunching on the gravel path, and rapped firmly on the back door. No response. She tried the knob. Locked. An oddity in a town where doors were left open to the trust of neighbors. Undeterred, Mary tended to the Moore's chickens herself, scattering feed and murmuring soothing words to the flustered birds. But the quiet gnawed at her. She phoned the Moore family store, inquiring if Josiah had perhaps left early, but no one had seen him. Her heart pounding now, she called Ross Moore, Josiah's brother, her voice trembling as she explained her unnatural stillness. Ross arrived swiftly, his face etched with concern, key in hand, a spare for just familial emergencies. As Ross unlocked the front door, Mary hovered on the porch, her hand clutching the railing, a sense of dread coiling in her gut like a serpent. The door creaked open, releasing a faint metallic tang that made her stomach churn. The unmistakable scent of blood, mingled with the stale air of a house undisturbed. Ross stepped inside, his footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. He ventured into the parlor. Then he pushed open the door to the downstairs guest bedroom. What he found shattered the morning's fragile peace. The bodies of young Ina and Lena Stillinger, the overnight guests from the church program, lay bludgeoned on the bed, their innocent faces obscured by blood-soaked cloths, the sheets a canvas of horror. Ross staggered back, his face ashen, and burst onto the porch. Mary, something terrible's happened, he gasped, his voice hoarse. Don't go in. Call Hank Horton, quick, the sheriff. Mary's curiosity, or perhaps a mother's instinct, overrode caution. As Ross turned to compose himself, she slipped past him into the house, her breath catching in her throat. The parlor was dim, mirrors draped in cloth, as if in mourning. She ascended the stairs on trembling legs, each creak amplifying her terror, until she reached the master bedroom. There, the full atrocity unfolded. Josiah and Sarah Moore, their heads caved in by savage blows, laid in eternal repose. In the children's rooms, the small forms of Herman, Mary, Arthur, and Paul, angels from the previous night's Children's Day service, met the same gruesome fate, their dreams extinguished in frenzy of violence. Mary's scream pierced the Iowa sky, a wail that summoned the town from its slumber. She collapsed on the landing, her world unraveling in the face of an unimaginable evil. The axe, propped mockingly in the guest room, bore silent witness to the night's savagery. As authorities descended and the horror spread like wildfire through Villisca, Mary Peckham became the unwitting harbinger of the town's darkest chapter, her discovery etching her name into the annals of tragedy. Forever after, she would wake in the night, haunted by the silence that had screamed so loudly, a reminder that even in the heartland's embrace, shadows could devour the light.
Ooh. Dare I say chapter 2 is as interesting as chapter 1?
It is. Yeah. Now we have the discovery.
Yeah.
The discovery of the family.
A couple things. I wonder if Mary actually did manage to slip past Ross Moore and go in the house, or if she actually just left and called the sheriff or the marshal or whatever. Mm-hmm. I wonder if she would be so bold after probably seeing Ross's reaction. Yeah. If she would actually do something like that.
Well, I take Mary, as the nosy neighbor.
She is, and that was another thing I was going to say. Yeah. Like, and I guess in certain instances, it is nice to have a nosy neighbor. Yeah. Somebody who is so used to the routines of everyday life for her neighbors to be like, hey, something's off. Yeah. And then to take it a step further, that, she is actually like taking care of the household. Like her natural instinct is like, oh, I can't get a hold of the Moores, like, oh, let me take care of their chickens and do whatever.
Let me help out.
You know, and could you imagine sleeping in your house doing whatever, and then all of a sudden you hear, Dave, wake up, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
Because like your neighbor was coming over because he didn't like see or hear from you in a while. Like
my car's still in the driveway.
Yeah. You'd be like busting out. What do you want?
Yeah.
You know, like, you wouldn't see anything like that. Probably more, I would think.
I actually have a neighbor right now who probably, I've been here, since July in this house. So she probably understands that I leave work at a certain time.
Right.
So I can pretty much guarantee that she's probably looking out the window. And if my car hasn't left yet at the usual time, like she's probably wondering
I feel like
why I'm still home.
I feel like
she doesn't come knocking on my door, but I'm sure she notices.
Yeah, I feel like in my neighborhood, like we would have to not stir for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like, like it's more likely that someone in a friend group or family like would reach out and text us before our neighbors caught it.
Yeah.
Obviously it was a little different.
It would probably be like 2 weeks and they're like, oh, the lawn kind of looks long.
It's looking well, that's about normal for him. He doesn't usually mow his lawn anyway. So, but no, hey, good on her for like realizing something was off and then trying to get attention, and then B, starting to take care of the farm.
Yeah.
Oh, they must be sleeping in late. And then, also doing your laundry at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Which I'm sure for them is like the average start
That's
of
the
a
average
day.
start. Yeah. Because they're a farming community from what I understand. Everybody's up early. Yeah. Everybody's making their
Well, they
bread.
stayed up late for church, 9:30 p.m. for church.
Right.
I don't know if she did, but.
Right. Well, I think from the stuff that I read, she's usually in bed by 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So she didn't even see them come home.
Right.
So she's whatever.
So she had no idea really what was going on until the morning.
Right.
And then she probably woke up and was like, oh, that's weird. The Moores aren't doing what they usually do.
Which is wild, going to bed at 8 o'clock on June 10th.
Yeah, it's probably still daylight out.
It doesn't get dark until after 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So the sun's still out. And you're like, it's time to tuck in.
It's probably hot still.
Yeah.
They didn't have air conditioning or anything like that.
I have an early morning of laundry.
I got to do the laundry.
I gotta hang my laundry.
I don't want Herman
3:30.
yelling at me again. It was just a funny little thing that like it's just it's like a forgotten thing that people do in being neighborly.
Yeah.
I think it's not the same anyway.
Right.
Where you're looking out for each other like that, where you can leave your doors unlocked and trust that everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That if you don't see something off, that maybe your neighbor will catch it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a what word am I looking for? A sense of like just knowing that your neighbor's looking out for you.
Yeah.
Like
there's got
to be a sense of,
it's like reassuring. It's like
reassurance. Yeah. That your neighbor looks out for you. You know what I mean? Nowadays I don't even know my neighbor's name.
Yeah, you would if you saw flashlights going off in the house or something, and your neighbor was getting robbed, you probably wouldn't even think anything of it. Yeah, that's if you were paying attention, to begin with.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a flashlight in his window.
Oh, I must be doing some
3 a.m.
housework.
Yeah, whatever.
That's fine.
Probably didn't pay his electric bill, bum.
Yeah, loser. But yeah, I can't even imagine. And it, good for her for calling her Ross, the brother, and having him come over to see what's going on. And thank goodness he had a key.
Yeah.
Although it was probably kind of weird when he had to use it, because it wasn't obviously normal back then to lock your doors. Even me growing up as a kid, we never really locked our doors.
No. Our doors were rarely locked.
Yeah.
Ever.
And then going in and probably getting hit, even though the murder's 5 hours old at that point.
Yeah.
They were murdered probably somewhere between midnight and I don't know,
1 or 2 a.m.
1 or 2 a.m. probably. Yeah. Getting hit with that like blood coppery smell.
Yeah.
And then seeing, one of the little girl's lifeless hands off to the side of the bedroom because they had set up in a spare sewing room.
Yeah.
A twin bed for the two girls to share. And then for him to kind of like back out and be like, don't go in there. Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Like, this is not, something's off. Something's wrong. Get the sheriff,
Yeah.
And then, Mary being like,
what do you mean?
What do you mean? All right, I'm going to go check this out for myself,
Yeah.
I think with all that, like that, I would think that would be enough of a warning not to go forward,
Yeah.
But it does carry the story further along.
Right. And what happens like after that?
Yeah.
Call the sheriff, and now there's like all this rustle and bustle going on at the house. Now the neighborhood is stirring,
and it's interesting because like they're all kind of doing their own, and it just goes to kind of show how like tight the community is. It's like a couple thousand people, so everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
And so to call the store and check with the store, and maybe there's an employee there or whatever, and he's like, no, I haven't seen Joe at all. He's not here yet. And then to call the brother and whatever, and then at one point, an employee even shows up at the farm.
Yeah, because he helps with the
livestock.
With the livestock,
and it's just this.
And Mary was like, "Hey, have you seen?" And it's like, "No, I'm just here to do whatever."
Yeah,
before I go to work.
Exactly. Before I go to work, I'm going to do some work.
Yeah.
Which also is something you would never see nowadays.
Right.
If you ain't paying me, I ain't clocked in. I ain't doing it. And then no way anything like that entered their mind.
No.
And then the police have to deal with it.
Yeah.
They have to come in after this discovery's been found, and I'm sure they had a marshal, they had a sheriff.
Yeah.
They had some people come in from at the national level, like the federal government, and then I think at one point they had to call the National Guard in.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was leading to. Like, now that Mary's freaking out and Ross is freaking out, and you got the town, the neighborhood basically rustling about and being like, "Oh, what's going on over there?" And before the sheriff can show up, people are going into the house.
Yeah.
It
was like they put out like an all points bullet. Like they literally, it's almost like they made a town announcement. Like the Moores were murdered.
Hear ye.
Yeah. Everyone listen. The Moores were murdered and brutally murdered, horrifically murdered.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, let's go to the Moore's house.
Yeah, let's go to the Moore. Let's see what's going on. People are going like just random people just walking through the house. The Stillinger family, their door, they go through the house.
Yeah, it was like a free for all. People were just going through the house like it was theirs.
Yeah.
And they were holding the axe that was found in the wherever it was found.
Yeah.
It was in the house.
Yeah.
They were taking bits of Joe's skull fragments.
Yeah.
As souvenirs, which is wild.
Right. Even before like anybody like the coroner showed up, or
the doctors.
A
random doctor did show up, and he was at one point. It got to the point where they were like, "What are you guys doing? Like, you gotta secure the scene. Like this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah. And eventually, someone I don't know if it was like the local attorney or whatever, like somebody made the call, like, get a hold of the governor. We need the National Guard here because this is getting crazy. Like there were like hundreds of people showing up at this house, and just basically like they could not control the scene.
No, I mean, compare that to today. That would be it. Like the case would be totally tainted. Like, there would be no way you could probably put the crime scene back together and litigate a case that led to a conviction at that point. Even if you had all the tools at our disposal, but it just goes to show how like process and procedure has changed so much.
Right. And not to like lose from this story, but this just kind of reminds me of like the BTK thing I was talking about earlier, is that crime scene was basically the same thing. Like people just like walking through. Yeah. There was like a high level police official who, technically, he runs the police department, but he probably shouldn't be trampling through the scene, right?
Right.
Became thirsty and got the ice tray out of the freezer to get himself a drink of water, and then left the ice tray out. Yeah. And then the detectives come in and be like, "Oh, look, the ice hasn't melted yet, so this must have just happened."
It's just the guy,
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
just a detective being, an idiot.
Yeah.
It just goes to show like how that can just totally send you down the wrong path.
Yep.
And this, just listening to the case and studying, it's like just there's so many weird things about it. Where all the mirrors were covered with sheets,
right? Which we talked about this, which goes to show that the killer maybe had remorse, or he didn't want to look at himself. Yeah, like he covered their faces. Right? Which
even if he hadn't covered their faces, you probably wouldn't be able to tell who was who because he destroyed their faces.
Right.
He used the blunt end of the axe and just smashed
their
everybody's faces in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
But like I said, it goes to show every more, you cover the face of your victim. You basically, oh, don't look at me kind of thing,
and then
he covers the mirrors like, oh, I don't want to look at myself.
but it's also weird because he like hung out. He must have hung out for a while
Right.
before leaving. So who knows what happened before? That guy was probably chilling in the barn. Sounds like there was somebody hanging out in the barn.
Yeah.
They found imprints on hay.
Yep. Well, there was also
some cigarette,
some speculation that there might have been in the attic as well.
Yeah.
They found a
lamp.
A lamp.
Yeah. A dimly lit like kerosene or type lamp, which led them to potentially conclude that this may have been like a serial killer type thing, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yep.
Because that is consistent with some other crimes that occurred in the area.
Yeah.
Well, not really the area, but like in that region of the country.
Yeah. Within that time frame.
Yeah. But yeah, there was. It seemed like there was potentially somebody sitting in the barn. There were some cigarettes in there. Definitely an indent from somebody laying in there. It seems like they took the axe from the the coal shed or something.
Yep.
And they used that. Yeah, maybe he was hiding inside somewhere at some point, and waited for them to return. Maybe watched them leave to go to church, and then made his move and grabbed the axe and went inside, and then and hid inside. And then when they all went to bed, he made his his way. Somehow he made his way upstairs to Joe's room and didn't wake anyone in the creaky old farmhouse.
If I was going to say, they probably made entry into the house if they were in the house at the time.
Yeah.
Between Mary going to sleep at 8 p.m. and them coming home.
Yeah, that
at
would
9:30.
that would make the most sense, and you wouldn't be seen.
Right.
Even in the middle of the day.
Because Mary's probably like, oh, what's going on outside? I see somebody walking.
Well, the sun's starting to get kind of low.
Yeah.
Better get to bed now.
Yeah.
No, Mary did a lot.
Yeah.
We got to, praise Mary for her efforts. Without her, who knows what would have happened.
Right. I mean, a lot of things like stand out, to me, looking at the psychological aspects of the case. Like I said, cover the faces, like don't look at me. Cover the mirrors. I don't want to see myself. Locking a door that is typically left unlocked.
Yeah.
Like, don't see what I've done. Don't go in. You know what I mean? Like, stay out.
There's like this whole like psychological, like, I don't know what it is, but there's all these elements.
Yeah.
That are, it makes you wonder.
Like somebody had a rage. And
they did all these things.
We kind of talked a while back about like the post nut clarity kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and then they're like,
I have this rage, this urge to like just do this, and then like when it's done, it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
What did I just do?
Yeah. And then those, probably those bad feelings they slowly start to build up again over time, and then you just gotta. Yeah. Let it out or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And once the remorse and the regret and everything kind of goes away, you're like, oh, well, remember that family I butchered? That was kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's not enough remorse for that person, obviously in this case, and in most cases, to turn themselves in. There's only, I don't know, I can only think of a few examples where the serial killer was like, I got to get caught and I got to turn myself in,
Yeah, right.
Because if
Ed
not,
Kemper.
Ed Kemper is the first one that comes to mind, And what's really crazy about this, we were talking about people trampling through the crime scene, is that the primary suspect in the case also made a visit, potentially back to the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that coming up, but first, let's hear from our sponsor, Aroma Deus.
In 2026, we don't waste hundreds of dollars on blind buying fragrances we've never smelled before. We also don't buy fragrance just because a TikTok influencer swore it would get us a ton of compliments. So what do we do then? We go to aromadeus.com and get ourselves perfume samples because it is the most convenient way to test luxury fragrances from all around the world to find the one that's right for you. Whether you want a scent that turns heads and boosts your confidence, or maybe the one that makes you smell like you're about to strike a very successful business deal? At aromadias.com, we have a robust selection with many great options for any gender, season, and occasion. Incredibly affordable prices, free shipping on all orders over $50, 10% off on all products for our new customers, and complimentary cotton pouch and test strips when you buy 3 samples or more. And the best part is that you can do it all without ever having to leave your house. So click on the link in the description below and get ready to discover your new favorite scent with Aromadias.
All right, thank you to our sponsor, Aromadias. Let's go ahead and continue this little story.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
All right. So Reverend George Kelly, a wiry Englishman with hollow cheeks and eyes that burn like coals in a forgotten forge, had arrived in Villisca days earlier, his battered suitcase filled with dog-eared Bibles and whispered secrets. Born across the Atlantic and drawn to America's vast heartland by a divine calling, or so he claimed, Kelly preached fire and brimstone in makeshift tents and church halls. But beneath his clerical collar lurked a fractured mind, plagued by visions and voices that twisted scripture into serpents. He attended the Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church that fateful Sunday, June 9th, where the Moore family, Josiah, his wife Sarah, their 4 children, Herman, Mary, Arthur, and Paul, and their young guests, the Stillinger sisters, Ina and Lena, had shone like angels in the congregation. Kelly's gaze lingered too long on their innocent faces, his sermons on purity masking a darker obsession with sin's eradication. As the program drew to a close around 9:30 p.m., the Moores and the girls strolled home under the dim glow of gas lamps, their laughter echoing faintly in the night air. Kelly, staying in a modest room across from the church, watched from the shadows, his heart pounding with an unholy rhythm. The voices began then, insidious whispers from the ether, echoing a passage from Ezekiel he had studied obsessively. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women. It was a command, he convinced himself, from God himself, a purification ritual to cleanse the town of unseen corruptions. Josiah Moore, prosperous and admired, represented worldly temptations. His family, the innocents tainted by association. In Kelly's delirium, they were vessels for demons that only he could exorcise. The clock struck midnight, and Villisca fell silent. Kelly slipped from his lodging, his footsteps muffled by the soft earth. He had scouted the Moore home earlier that day, noting the unlocked doors, common in such trusting rural enclaves. In the backyard shed, he found Josiah's own axe, its blade dull but serviceable, as if fate had placed it there for his holy purpose. Gripping the handle, he felt a surge of righteous fury, the wood warming like a prophet's staff. He entered through the back door, the hinges creaking like a distant thunder. The house was still, the air thick with the scent of fresh-baked bread from Sarah's kitchen. Upstairs, the family slumbered in their beds, Josiah and Sarah in the master room, the children in theirs, and the Stillinger girls in the guest chamber. Kelly moved like a specter, his breath shallow, the voices now a cacophony urging him onward. He started with the parents, the axe descending in swift, merciless arcs, the blows muffled by the feather mattresses. Blood bloomed like dark roses on the sheets, but Kelly's trance deepened. He covered their faces with cloths, as if to shield their souls from the horror. Down the hall, the children stirred not, their dreams undisturbed until the final moment. Herman and Mary, then Arthur and Paul, each strike a verse in his twisted liturgy. The Stillinger sisters, symbols of youthful purity, now defiled in his madness, met the same fate in the downstairs room. Kelly lingered briefly, arranging the scene with ritualistic care. Mirrors draped in cloth to ward off evil reflections. A slab of bacon left oddly in the parlor, as if mocking the mundane. The axe, wiped clean on a victim's dress, was propped against a wall, its work complete. Dawn approached, and Kelly fled the blood-soaked sanctuary, discarding his stained clothes in a hasty bundle, he boarded the 5 a.m. train out of Villisca, his face a mask of feigned composure, though his hands trembled as he clutched his Bible. In the days that followed, whispers of his odd muttering spread. 8 souls departed in Villisca, he told fellow travelers. Pity the hand that wrought it, for it had no control. Bloody garments sent to a dry cleaner raised suspicions, but it would be years before authorities pieced together his erratic path.
Yeah.
That is the story that we're coming up with.
Yeah. So and the reason why I think we leaned on this during our research had a lot to do with the fact that he was the only one that was prosecuted.
Yeah.
Formally.
Yeah.
Whether that was the right approach to take or not, that I guess is up for the authorities to debate and decide. And it wasn't like it was a day later.
Yeah.
It was years later when they decided to finally go after this guy.
Right.
And a lot of it had to do with the fact that like he was in the area, and they could kind of show that. And just things he said to people,
Right.
you know, and it always just strikes me like when, because we've heard other examples of this. And we're going to talk about some of the other suspects later on, where they kind of do something similar, where they say something to a stranger, and then the stranger kind of puts some pieces together.
The telephone game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how things get like reported up to the authorities. It'd be like, if we were hanging out and you were like acting weird and you said things that were alarming, and then I turned the TV on and a murderer was committed up the road and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, you just said you were up the road, and it was at the gas station, and you just said you were at the gas station,
right?
And then me being like, well, the driver's being a little weird, and he was up the road and he was at the gas station, and it did just happen.
Raises some red flags.
Raises some red flags, and I think what's surprising to me is that never having been in that mindset is that people would do that. Like they would just be like, sitting on a train full of strangers and just randomly blurt out, line, like,
well, that's what I have, on
8 souls departed in Villisca, you know, pity the hand that wrought it, for it had no control. Like,
right.
Imagine being like reading your newspaper and all of a sudden you hear this guy.
Right. Yeah.
So,
just start rambling.
No context, you know.
And he got on the train at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And basically Mary didn't discover them until after 7, right?
Right.
So, he's already on the train out of Villisca. And he's like, 8 souls departed in Villisca today. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Where the heck is Villisca?
Yeah.
No. And the other thing that struck me as weird was, well, for one, the idea that serial killers stalk their prey, or whether, I don't know, killers in general.
Right.
Like, him, it just makes me, I love the way it's described in your reading. But it just makes me wonder, like, was he chilling in church with his family and he marked them? Like, this is the family that God told me to kill.
Right.
And then he's just fixated on them.
Yeah.
And he's just watching them through church service, tracking their movements or whatever. Yeah. And all that stuff. And
well, that's yeah. I mean, that does hold a lot of truth. It's like a lot of these serial killers or killers in general, when they have, bloodlust on their brain, it could be literally anybody.
Yeah.
Whatever something triggers them, right?
Yeah.
And when we talked about a while back the Cheshire murders here in Connecticut, it just so happened that Komashevsky was sitting in the parking lot of Stop and Shop, and then saw the mother and daughter walk in, and that's all.
That
it
was it.
That was it. He's like,
and
I'm going for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it was. Just a chance happening.
It's just crazy to me. It's crazy to me that like it could be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now the other thing that immediately stuck out to me, I was like, all right, here's that church.
No.
How's the timing work there?
Right. Yeah.
Like he essentially would have had to, and it just goes to show like there's no like set time. Like there's no. The window of opportunity is probably pretty big.
Right. Well, this goes into what I was saying earlier. Like, I believe the person who did this got into the house between 8 p.m. when Mary went to bed and 9:30 when they got home. Now, the service didn't end at 9:30.
Yeah, he would have had to
leave. The service ended well before then. I think they said a little bit before 9. And then the Moore family and people, they kind of hung out and talked and like, whatever, had like little
they
discussions.
did their community.
Their little community.
Talking to their people.
Right.
And, whatever.
So there was like a little.
He had time to.
He had time to
act,
leave there and go to wherever he had to be.
And if he, if it is true that, I would think, if you were, and it also makes me wonder also, like when actually did he lock in on these people?
Right.
Because if he did survey the property and the house and stuff like that and start, maybe this happened not that day. Maybe he just decided way earlier that the Moore family was the family that God told him to come down and smite or whatever. And so he probably had some familiarity with the house, especially if you're traveling through it at night, know.
Now, I will say, because this is an unsolved case, and even though George Kelly, was the only one that was pretty much tried, for it, and later, acquitted.
He did also do have a little. He confessed.
Yeah,
he did confess, but then he recanted his confession.
Yeah, but even though like I'm saying, this is an unsolved case.
Yes,
we are adding a little bit of liberty to our storytelling here.
Yes, we are.
What I mean?
And I think it's one of the. It is a murder. A family did die and all that stuff, but it is it's something kind of in a morbid way, fun to imagine,
right?
And think about like what all the little details that because the end part, and that's there. The family died. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened before that,
right?
And that led up to the events that led up to this somebody wanting to do harm to this family,
right?
And there is something powerful that can come from understanding why people do that stuff. Yeah. And maybe we don't do necessarily a great job as society in understanding that. And I don't know if we should or shouldn't. Yeah. But I think there is obviously something to people doing these things, whether it's, a criminal act to get some kind of economic gain out of it or a criminal act because you just need it or for some reason, or if it's like
you've been slighted or
maybe it's a mental illness or something that's driving it, and it's just there's all these what ifs and I think when you have cold cases, there's like a desire for closure. Yeah. And when you don't have that closure, it just lets your mind and your imagination go wild because you're trying. Like, I don't know if we're ingrained that way, but you're trying to get a conclusion to a story. Right. A lot of people don't like watching movies that have an open-ended end, or it's not, there's no closure there. I've talked to plenty of people who get mad when there's like a cliffhanger or something like that, Yeah. And then you immediately want to tune into the next episode or the next part of the movie because you need that closure,
Exactly. And, so for like this story, obvious, like I said, there are some liberties that we took. Did Mary go into the house right away? Yeah. Or did she not?
And these are minor details.
Yeah, there's some reports, that I looked at. She did go in the house. Right. And then there's others that she ran and got the sheriff. There's different aspects of it. For this story, we're like, it would be kind of interesting to see the nosy neighbor go into the house. Yeah. And see everything,
And in a movie, if you're making a movie, you'd probably do that because you'd want that reaction. Right. If you wanted to show the scene at that moment, you'd want that reaction. And who better to get it from than Mary? Yeah.
Now the thing with Kelly, George Kelly here, like we said, he is the only one that stood trial for this. So we're going to go with the story that he's probably the one who did it.
Even though he was acquitted. Yeah. But yeah, he did confess, and who knows, it was potentially under duress, and he may not have been suitable to be interrogated to begin with, because he definitely, he spent some time in a mental institution later in life. Yeah. And there's a big debate.
Which I think we're going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. And there's a big debate whether he could even have committed these crimes because he's so small. Yeah. And he's 5'2". He doesn't,
120 pounds. Yeah. Dripping wet.
They're like, there's no way this guy was able to wield an axe and smash the faces of all these people
You have a list of a few people?
Yeah, no, we
more than a few.
Quite a few people.
Yeah. All right. So who are these other people that could have?
There was the hired gun, which was William Blackie Mansfield, and he was arrested in 1916. Okay. And Josiah Moore, he worked for Frank Jones and at the Jones store. Yep. And he did that until he opened up his own company in 1908. apparently,
Yeah.
Jones was extremely upset that Moore had left his company.
Yeah.
And
Well, when he left, he took the John Deere contract.
the lucrative John Deere franchise. Sorry, that was my computer.
Yeah.
Freaking out.
The lucrative John Deere contract.
There was also a rumor that Moore had an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law, Donna. So maybe he wasn't the outstanding family man.
There are secrets.
But rumors are rumors. So.
Yep.
But there was a Detective Wilkerson of the Burns Detective Agency who openly accused Frank Jones and his son Albert of hiring William Blackie Mansfield to kill Josiah Moore. Neither Jones or his son was ever arrested, and both denied vehemently any connection to the murders.
Okay.
However, the potential hitman, Blackie Mansfield, was arrested in 1916. Detective Wilkerson believed he was also responsible for the axe murders of his wife, infant child, father-in-law, and mother-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois.
Jeez.
Because on July 5th, 1914, a full 2 years after the Villisca crime, he suspected that Wilkerson was the killer in the axe murder in Palo, somewhere in Kansas.
Yeah. Kansas.
Just 4 days. So this is in Kansas, just 4 days before the Villisca murder. And it bore many of the same peculiar details. He also pinned another axe murder in Aurora, Colorado, on Mansfield as well. Wilkerson, the detective, concluded that those murders were part of a string likely done by the hands of the same person due to the striking similarities.
Yeah.
In each of the murders, the victims were hacked to death with the blunt end of an axe. The mirrors and bodies were covered with cloth. And notably, a lamp with the chimney was left off at each crime scene.
Yep.
Wilkerson had already served time in Leavenworth prison. And Wilkerson convinced a grand jury to open up an investigation. Mansfield was arrested and brought to Montgomery County from Kansas City. Payroll records, infamous payroll records, however, provided a rock-solid alibi that placed Mansfield in Illinois at the time of both the murders in Kansas and the Villisca murders. Local newspapers reported a woman testified she overheard 3 men in the woods plotting the murder of the Moore family a short time before the killings. The sheriff drove Mansfield into the nearby countryside outside the city limits, and he somehow managed to get back to Kansas City. Mansfield later won a lawsuit he brought against Wilkerson and was awarded $2,225, equal to $65,000 in 2023 money.
Yep.
Wilkerson told the newspaper at the time he believed that Jones, arguably the wealthiest and most influential resident of Villisca at the time, pressured for Mansfield to be released and pushed for Reverend T.K. Kelly to be arrested and tried.
Kelly.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, interesting idea that there was this like dynamic between Jones and the Moores because he was salty over business things and potentially an affair with his daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And that he got something stirred up and hired a hitman and did all these things. But then the other side of it is that this, Wilkerson, this detective from the Burns Company, just had an idea and was like, I genuinely believe this guy is the guy, and just went with it to the point where.
Now he had no affiliation with the original case. Like he wasn't like.
I think he popped up at some point.
Yeah.
To just.
Kind of see what was going on.
Yeah, like because he's obviously a type of detective at the time.
Well, when you say the Burns Agency or whatever, it sounds like he's like
a Pinkerton kind of guy, like a private detective.
Right.
Yeah. And so it sounds like he, that's probably what his role was, and had a theory and just went with it, and that's what he came up with. That's how he connected the dots. And. Is it super far-fetched? I don't think so. Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know how common it was back then to hire a hitman to do stuff for you. But hey, for money, you lost a lucrative John Deere contract, and maybe there's an affair. Maybe.
Right.
But yeah, obviously he couldn't prove it. He got an indictment, but you can indict a hand sandwich, right? So, but yeah, he couldn't prove it, and he ended up getting sued for defamation or something. So, or libel. I don't know what it was, but.
Yeah.
But yes, and then obviously he's blaming that, he used his wealth, Jones used his wealth to get the investigation focused on George Kelly. So maybe that's why George Kelly was targeted.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just one of the theories, and there's a few others here. There was Henry Lee Moore, who was convicted of a double murder.
No relation?
No relation to him.
Or you?
Or me. No, yes. No relation to me and any of these people. We're just we're the boring Moors.
Yeah.
As early as May 1913, investigators speculated the Moore family murders might be part of a string of murders perpetrated by a serial killer. M.W. McClary, a federal officer assigned to the Villisca case, announced that he had found a suspect in those murders and 4 other crimes that were committed throughout the Midwest at the same time.
Okay.
His suspect was Henry Lee Moore. No relation. Henry was born on November 1st, 1874 in Boone County, Montana.
Okay.
He was the eldest of 4 sons of Enoch, a Civil War veteran, and Georgina Ann Wilson Moore, a nurse.
Okay.
By 1910, Henry's father and 2 of his brothers died, and his other brother had moved to California. He grew up troubled. While he was living in Missouri, he developed a habit of visiting various morgues in St. Louis to look at dead bodies, as one does. He kept a scrapbook of famous murder cases. One researcher said he may have started his collection as early as the age of 8. And while he was working as a farmhand, it was rumored that he might have fathered a child to an underage daughter of a farmer. He had run-ins with the law and was convicted of forgery in 1910 and served time in Kansas State Prison, and he was released in 1911. So he's no, he has a history of crime.
Right.
Let's just say he's no stranger to crime.
Yeah.
The first axe murder, the first axe crime of the series, suspected him of committing a crime in Colorado Spring in September of that year, the same month he got a job working on the railroad. A month later, in October of 1911, a family was killed in Monmouth, Illinois. And just a week later, 5 members of a family in Ellsworth, Kansas, were murdered as they slept. Just a week before the murders in Villisca, a man and his wife were killed in Paola, Kansas. The similarities in the crime were striking.
Okay.
Moore was in love with a 16-year-old girl named Quinnie Nichols, who rejected his marriage proposal because he didn't have a home of his own. He assured her that he'd soon be the sole inhabitant of his mom's house, where he lived on and off. On the night of December 17th, 1917, he checked into a hotel in Columbia using an alias. He went to his mother's home and beat her with a rusty coal axe while she sat in a chair putting ointment on for her joints.
Yeah.
He went upstairs and then beat to death his 82-year-old sleeping grandmother.
Oof.
He returned to the hotel and attempted to clean off all the blood, but ended up leaving it spread around the room on the sheets, his clothes, and his arms. He returned to the house to discover the bodies, but his blood-spattered clothes and the quick revelation that he'd spent the night in a hotel made him an immediate suspect.
Oh, yeah, I can't.
He was convicted on March 14th, 1918, and sentenced to life in prison. He was paroled in 1949. He died at the age of 82 in the Salvation Army Center in St. Louis. McClary continued to pursue his theory that Moore was responsible for at least 4 crimes that killed 22 people in the Midwest, and a few took this seriously, even opening an official investigation. In the end, Moore was never charged or convicted of any other crimes. So I understand that McClary, why he kind of felt that way, because this guy was obviously convicted of killing his 82 grandmother and his mother.
Yeah. And he was a degenerate.
He was a degenerate, had a history of crime, and also killed his mother and grandmother with a coal axe, you know? So, but again, if you can't tie the guy to the scene of a crime and you can't prove your case, you don't have a case, So just another interesting theory.
Yeah.
Another one, Andy Sawyer, he was detained by the sheriff. This was the hobo one.
Okay.
The
hobo theory?
The hobo theory. All right. So every hobo, transient and otherwise, unaccounted for stranger, was also a suspect in the Villisca Axe Murders.
Yep.
One such suspect was named Andy Sawyer. As with many other suspects, no real evidence linked Sawyer to the crime. However, his name came up often in grand jury testimonies. According to Thompson Dreyer of Burlington, Iowa, a bridge foreman and pile driver for the Burlington Railroad, Andy Sawyer approached his crew in Creston at 6 a.m. on July 10th. The murders were the morning the murders were discovered. Sawyer was clean shaven and wearing a brown shirt, or he was wearing a brown suit when he arrived. His shoes were covered in mud and his pants were wet nearly to the knee. He asked for employment, and as Dreyer needed an extra man, and he was given a job on the spot. Dreyer testified that later, when the crew hit Fontella, Iowa, Sawyer purchased a newspaper, which he went off by himself to read. The newspaper carried a front page account of the Villisca murders, and according to Dyer, Sawyer was much interested in it. Dyer's crew complained that Sawyer slept in his clothes and was anxious to be by himself. They were also uneasy about the fact that Sawyer slept with his axe and often talked about the Villisca murders and whether or not a killer had been apprehended. He apparently told Dyer personally that he had been in Villisca that Sunday night and had heard of the murders and was afraid he may be a suspect, which was why he left and showed up in Creston. Dyer was suspicious and turned him over to the sheriff on June 18th of 1912. Prior to the sheriff arriving, Dyer testified that he walked up behind Sawyer and he was rubbing his head with both hands and all of a sudden jumped up and said to himself, "I will cut off your head." At the same time, he made striking motions with the axe and began hitting the piles in front of him.
Jesus.
Dyer's son, JR, also testified that one day as the crew drove through Villisca, Sawyers told him he would show him where the man that killed the Moore family got out of town. He said the killer jumped over a specific manure box a block from the Moore's house, then crossed the railroad tracks. Sawyer then said to look on the other side of the railroad car to see an old tree where the murderer stepped into a creek, probably why the knees were wet.
Right.
According to J.R. Dreyer, when the train passed into Villisca, he looked over and saw such a tree south of the tracks about 4 blocks away. Sawyer, however, was apparently dismissed as a suspect in the case when it was discovered that he was able to prove he had been in Acela, Iowa, on the night of the murders. He had been arrested for vagrancy, and the Acela sheriff recalled putting him on a train at approximately 11 p.m. that evening, heading away from Villisca. So, yeah, obviously, crazy kind of theory, because this guy was, if any of that is true from the Dyer's experience, this guy was, he showed up, wet knees, dirty clothes or whatever, and acting weird. And obviously he's, obsessing over this crime in this case. Right. And yeah, I think, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, where these guys are just like, I don't know if they need to get it out or whatever. They're just confessing or saying things or being weird, and it's causing people to have it's red flags. It's like what the heck is going on here? Yeah.
I mean, this guy pretty much described how the killer got away. Yeah. And then he shows up. His pants were wet up to the knees, like he did run through a stream or a river, and basically.
And he's sleeping with an axe and being all weird.
This is how they did it.
Oh no, yeah. So yeah, I can understand why. First of all, why they would turn him over to the sheriff, but ultimately, it sounds like another officer from either another agency or whatever was like, no. Trust me, I know this guy. This guy stands out like a sore thumb. I put him on a train away from Villisca. Yeah. So it couldn't have been him. Sort of kind of takes him out of the range, but maybe he got off at the next stop. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the next stop's not too far away. Maybe he can't just jump off a train and then walk over to the Moore's house or whatever. But so maybe the timing doesn't work. But still, an interesting theory nonetheless. Right. So then there's Joe Ricks, who was detained in Monmouth, Illinois. He was an early suspect in the murder. He was a man who was arrested in Illinois when he stepped off the train wearing shoes that were covered in blood. Okay. As you can see in the newspaper articles that discuss the accusations, the man was not recognized as the man seen in Villisca asking for directions to the Moore's home the day preceding the murders. It just seems like with him, he was detained. He got off the train. Yeah. Obviously, blood on your shoes. That's probably, especially, it was preceding the murders. So it doesn't seem like there was a whole lot here to cover for.
So basically, it was just bloody shoes.
Yeah, I think he was just detained because he had bloody shoes on.
Yeah.
And somebody saw him get off the train with bloody shoes and maybe thought that was suspicious.
Yeah.
And thought that he should be investigated further as a potential suspect.
Yeah.
And it pretty much led to nothing.
Right.
You know, so I don't think there's a whole lot here. So it's just somebody who saw something
Ricks.
weird and pointed authorities in the direction of this guy, and it didn't lead to much.
All right. So Ricks is off the list.
Yeah, I think Rick seems the least likely, but you know, who knows? Maybe he is the guy.
Yeah.
But then there's the most, I think probably for us, is the most interesting theory.
This is the one I'm going with.
The Midwest serial killer theory.
Ah, the Midwest serial killer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, it's saying that Villisca was part of a pattern.
Okay.
All right, and researchers today believe a serial killer traveling by train is a plausible explanation for not only the murders in Villisca, but other seemingly random axe murders ranging from 1910 to 1919. They point to a pattern of crimes McClory, the guy from earlier, identified in 1913. Most rule out Henry Lee Moore as a good suspect. However, in the other cases, robbery was not a motive, while in his case, greed was the obvious driver. Some signatures of the other crimes are missing, such as covering the victims' faces. Also, the spree seems to have started earlier while Moore was still detained and continues after his imprisonment.
All right. So they're basically saying that Henry Lee Moore is not.
Yes.
Not.
Crime researcher Beth Klingsmith has suggested that as many as 10 incidents that occurred close to railway tracks, but in locations as far away as Rainer, Washington, might be part of this chain. And in several cases, there are striking similarities to the Villisca crime.
Okay.
In his 2012 book, Murdered in Their Beds by Troy Taylor, he explored many similar axe murders involving families in Texas, Colorado, and throughout the Midwest that echoed Villisca. He didn't pinpoint any specific suspects. In 2017, in the book The Man on the Train, journalist Bill James theorized the murders could have been the work of Paul Mueller, a German immigrant, drifter, and logger. James even tied Mueller to the infamous Hincher.
Oh, the Hinterkaifeck murders. In Germany.
Familiar with that? Huh?
Yes, we did an episode on that.
He's stating his belief.
Remember that German dance party?
Well, I'm glad you were familiar with that because that'd save me from having to try to say that word.
Yeah.
He stated his belief that Mueller returned to Germany after running into trouble with the law a few times in the U.S. These authors and other researchers focus on crimes where families had been murdered by an axe. Axes were a weapon of convenience at the time since virtually all homes had one. Some involved prepubescent girls. Not all homes in those days had mirrors. They were an expensive luxury item, but in those that had them, they were usually covered with cloth or clothes. In most, victims' faces were covered, windows would be covered, and doors locked. Several shared other unique signatures: a lamp without a chimney, the wick turned down low. These are the cases most often cited in connection with Villisca. So those were some of the other suspects. Just trying to dig a little deeper into who else might have been the potential perpetrator of the Moore family murders or whatever, you know. And so I just felt like it was something worth discussing and
alternate theories.
Yeah, and I think like I said, the Villisca Axe Murder House people, this is like their summary of it.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job kind of breaking down the other potential folks that were being looked at the time. Yeah. You know, and not just George Kelly.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a few plausible, you know, and it kind of gives you like the pros and cons of each. I'm kind of leaning towards a serial killer, you know.
Yeah,
theory,
that there was. It seems.
They live near a railroad track. There are other murders along this railroad track.
Yeah,
you know, in different cities.
I think we both kind of agree with that. Like it's. You know, it seems like, you know, maybe there's just this random unknown guy, like a hobo type guy, would jump on trains and go from town to town, and then eventually you just get an urge and just commit some murders.
There were so many that were like kind of connected in similar ways, you know, along the Midwest, which kind of go along this, you know, in Illinois and in different areas that go along this railroad track.
Yeah. And if that's the case, if, you know, it was a guy that was just hopping from town to town via train, how would you ever catch that guy? Right. You know what I mean? Like unless he was
kind of like the I-30 killer, which is a modern day version of a railroad track. You
Yeah.
know, the highway, I-30, you know, goes through like a bunch of states, and there's just people, dead bodies found all along this interstate.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the fact that there were people that were even able to, like these detectives or investigators or PIs or whatever, they were even able to like find similarities in the cases and connect them as, you know, across state lines from,
Yeah.
you know, like Texas up to, you know, wherever,
Yeah.
to Iowa.
Well, it's like this.
It's remarkable because
Yeah.
like even, you know, when you're thinking about like Ted Bundy going around
Yeah.
back in the day and like, you know, or Zodiac or whatever, like it was tough for police agencies to talk to each other and connect the dots.
Connect all these
You know,
different crimes.
if you were gonna take someone out and you just did it across state lines, another agency would have that case,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't know that there's a similar case.
And a lot of times, even if they did know, they wouldn't share information.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is my case.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah. But this serial killer theory, I believe you said, came out in like around 2012.
Yeah,
So we're talking 100 years later.
that was
You know?
a while away. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense that when you connect all these cases together, it just seems plausible. But we're here to talk about George Kelly because he's the only one that...
The Reverend.
George Kelly, because he's the only one that's been tried and whatnot.
Yes.
So, ready?
Let's dive into it.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's see what this was like.
Okay. In the shadowed aftermath of that blood-soaked night in June 1912, the Villisca Axe Murders lingered like a curse over the quiet Iowa town, unsolved and festering. For 5 long years, whispers chased Reverend George Kelly across the Midwest. An English-born preacher, barely 5 foot 2 inches tall, with a frail frame of 120 pounds and eyes that darted as if pursued by unseen demons. He had been in Villisca that fateful Sunday, attending the Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church, where the Moore children and the Stillinger sisters had performed their innocent recitations. He departed on the early morning train, hours before Mary Peckham's discovery shattered the dawn, yet suspicion trailed him. Bloody garments sent to a laundry in Macedonia, odd mutterings to fellow passengers about 8 souls departed in Villisca, and his unnerving habit of returning to the scene, once posing as a Scotland Yard detective to gain entry to the slaughterhouse itself. The noose tightened slowly. Kelly's eccentricities, his history of mental instability, accusations of sending obscene materials through the mail, and a pattern of peculiar behavior drew the gaze of investigators. By 1917, with the case grown cold but never forgotten, authorities issued a bench warrant on April 30th. On May 14th, Reverend Kelly stepped off a train in Villisca at 6 a.m., summoned back to the town that haunted his sermons and nightmares. He was placed under arrest, charged not with all 8 murders, but initially linked to the slangs. His name now indelibly tied to the axe that had ended so many young lives. The interrogation rooms of the time were dimly lit chambers of pressure and persistence. For hours, some accounts say days, detectives and state agents pressed him, hammering at his fragile psyche with questions about the night of June 9th and June 10th. Kelly, ever the preacher, spoke in fervent bursts of divine commands. He confessed that a voice from on high had seized him after hearing the sermon text, "Slay utterly." The shadow, the voice of God, had guided his hand. He described entering the Moore home, picking up the axe in the backyard, striking the children upstairs first, then downstairs last, arranging cloths over their face as if to shield their souls from judgment. "I knew God wanted me to do it this way," he allegedly declared. The words scrawled in a signed statement witnessed by attorneys and agents. Yet almost as quickly as the ink dried, Kelly recanted. The confession, he claimed, had been wrung from him through exhaustion, coercion, and threats. Police brutality, masked as righteous questioning. His small stature and documented mental troubles cast doubt. How could such a frail man wield an axe with the ferocity needed to cave in 8 skulls? Even some family members of the victims harbored skepticism, wondering if this broken minister was more victim of his own delusions than perpetrator of the crime. The first trial convened in Red Oak on September 4th, 1917, in a courtroom thick with tension and the scent of summer's end. The prosecution paraded the confession like Holy Writ. Witnesses recounted his eerie premonitions on the train, and the bloody laundry tale resurfaced. Defense attorneys countered with Kelly's recantation, his history of instability, and the lack of direct physical evidence. No fingerprints, no murder weapon proven to be his, no witness beyond his own tormented words. The jury deliberated long and hard, splitting 11-1, 11 for acquittal, 1 holding out stubbornly. A hung jury. The case dissolved into mist on September 28th. The Reverend released, but not free. A second trial followed swiftly in November. The case determined to close the chapter. Again, the confession was the centerpiece. Dramatic readings echoing through the hushed gallery. Again, the defense painted Kelly as a tormented soul, perhaps a voyeur or a fantasist who inserted himself into tragedy, not its architect. The evidence remained circumstantial, the acts silent. This time, the jury reached a verdict. Not guilty. Acquittal. After the gavel fell in that Red Oak courtroom in late 1917, Reverend George Kelly walked out a free man, twice acquitted. The shadow of suspicion lifted by juries who could not reconcile the frail preacher's signed confession with the brutal reality of the acts that had claimed 8 lives. Yet freedom came at a price. The trials had stripped him bare, his name forever linked to Villisca's bloodiest night, a whispered curse that followed him like the echo of those final muffled blows. The little minister, with eyes that seemed to hold too many storms, left the Midwest behind not long after. The prairies that once echoed his fervent sermons now felt too exposed, too full of accusing glances. He drifted eastward, seeking quieter pulpits in New England, where the past might fade amid the rolling hills and salt air. For a time, he preached in small congregations, including one in Chester, New Jersey, perhaps 2 or 3 years after the acquittals. His voice still carried the fire of Scripture, but the sermons grew more erratic, laced with visions and voices that no longer aligned neatly with doctrine. Parishioners noticed the trembling hands, the sudden digressions into divine retribution, the way his gaze would fix on children in the pews as if weighing unseen sins. Kelly's mind, long fractured, unraveled further in the decades that followed. Diagnosed later with schizophrenia, he spent periods in and out of institutions, his behavior swinging between fervent piety and alarming instability. He had married, some accounts suggest later in life, perhaps around the turn of the century or even later, but the union remained unconsummated, a quiet testament to deeper torments. His wife, Laura, stood by him through the wanderings until her own death on December 20th, 1947. She was laid to rest at Woodlawn Cemetery, a place of stone angels and silence. As the years wore on, Kelly's preaching dwindled to occasional shadowy appearances. The once itinerant reverend became a ghost in his own life, haunted by the very scriptures he had twisted in delirium. Slay utterly. The Midwest murders receded into legend for most, but for Kelly, they lingered in every quiet moment, every sleepless night. Whispers of his involvement never fully died. True crime enthusiasts and historians would revisit his name, debating whether the acquittal spared a madman or condemned an innocent soul to carry guilt unspoken. In his final years, the voices grew louder, the delusions more consuming. By the 1950s, institutional care became permanent. He ended his days in Islip Hospital, Pilgrim State Hospital's sprawling complex on Long Island, then one of America's largest and most infamous psychiatric facilities, a labyrinth of wards where thousands of troubled minds sought, or were confined to, solace. There, amid the echoing corridors of regimented routines, Reverend Kelly faded. He died in 1959 at the age of 80. Buried beside Laura in Woodlawn Cemetery, his grave bears no epitaph of infamy or redemption, only the dates that bookend a life shadowed by one unsolved night in Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. You let a murder linger nowadays for 5 years, it's going to probably be a tough case unless you have like good evidence.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of like sticks out to me is the circumstantial evidence in the whole thing.
Right.
So, you know, you have all these people that trampled through the house and all these people involved and everything, and
holding the axe
and all that stuff, and then all you have is 7 years later his confession, which is, you know, that's not nothing,
right?
But you got to take into account the circumstances of it all.
Yeah,
you know, he you know, it sounds like he was interrogated in a setting that wasn't necessarily ideal.
right.
A lot of pressure was put on him, and I'm sure there was some pressure on the authorities, as there usually is. People want justice. People want answers, especially the families. You know, so maybe it was just the interrogative methods that were used that caused him to break, or maybe he was finally just letting a guilty conscience come out,
Right.
and be said.
One of the things when you know, when they only have a confession to go by,
Yeah.
and everything is just like circumstantial and
Yeah.
basically far-fetched, you
Right.
know, to be honest. You kind of want to look at what was the interrogation like.
Yeah.
How long was it?
Yeah.
Were there breaks? Was he given food? Was he given, you know, bathroom break? What, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
were they you know were they physical with him? Were they, you know, were they
Right.
beating him up? Or,
Well, yeah, I mean, this is 1912.
yeah,
I
you never
mean,
know. You know,
Who knows what the tactics were back then, but
yeah,
you know, and this guy is like 5'2", 120 pounds.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And he probably got like a burly detective, like, listen here.
Listen here,
Yeah,
little man.
right. So who knows?
Yeah. So you know, that's, you know, it's tough to unpack all that.
Yeah,
You know, all the what ifs.
yeah. I personally don't think he did it.
Well, so there's something interesting about it because, you know, for one, obviously they were talking about him having like bloody clothes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you
Well,
know,
where were they?
I don't know. It just
And they talk about it, but
Yeah.
I mean,
and
he dropped off bloody clothes
to the laundry
To the
or whatever,
laundry.
yeah.
Okay, so where are they?
yeah, that would
You
be
know?
part of the evidentiary record, right?
Right. But they're saying there's nothing.
There's nothing other than his
his
confession.
confession, right?
Yeah. So that was probably one of those situations where, like when we were talking about earlier, where you have people, maybe they run into these characters and they start embellishing how they're acting or what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to connect the dots of you know, something that they heard around town or read in the paper or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Dave's acting weird.
Right.
You know, he's got to be the guy that caused the Villisca Axe murders and whatever.
Right.
And so maybe that's just same thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, you know, he has a legit reason for dropping off bloody clothes, or maybe there was no bloody clothes at all.
Right. And the whole comments that he made on the train,
Right.
like when were those comments made?
And
Like, did he get on the train at 5 o'clock in the morning and then immediately just say, "Oh," you know, before anybody even knew?
Yeah.
Or was it hours later? You know, when they had like a stop off in a town or something, and he saw it in a newspaper. Or
it does
whatever.
seem like people back in the day had, or at least in this area, had a habit of just blurting out weird things.
Weird thing.
You know, like to people, they just happen to, you know, you know, and so yeah, maybe he was acting weird. Obviously, he has a history of mental illness. He spent the last chunk of his life in a mental institution. Now,
Yeah. Didn't he join some organization later in life?
he became like a preacher for the KKK.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Ku Klux Klan.
The Northeast chapter.
Yeah, the New Jersey chapter.
The New Jersey
That's
chapter.
The New Jersey chapter.
Okay.
So yeah, he's got, you know, yeah. I mean, I guess I was gonna say like maybe the case getting pulled back into it 7 years later, you know, maybe that caused him to have some mental deterioration.
Yeah.
And then he decided to get out once he got acquitted, you know, because I'm sure, you know, trials are stressful. So he's like, you know what, screw this place. I'm getting out of here.
Right.
They dragged me back here. They bullied me into a confession or whatever.
Yeah.
And now I'm done with it. Now I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to New Jersey to join the Klan.
I'm going to New Jersey. Joining the when I saw that, I'm like, whoa, that took a turn.
Yeah.
I didn't see that happening.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, if you're the type of guy that just thrive, I mean, I don't know if he was racist or not. Probably if he joined the Klan.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're a guy that thrives on like standing in front of a large crowd and reading scripture and being heard, like I guess that's one way to do it,
Well, I mean, up until that point,
especially if you're somebody who's potentially shunned by society because
Right.
your name is tied to this horrific murder,
right, you're shunned, and also your sermons have already been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Especially, when we were talking about like a lot of his sermons started talking about like visions he's had and like all this other kind, you're not preaching the scripture, you're preaching the freaking hallucinations that are going on up in your head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems kind of fitting to just.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely seemed like, and he would stand out because he was British and all that stuff. So he would talk a little differently.
Oi!
Yeah. So, maybe society just kind of gave him the cold shoulder a little bit. I don't know. But what's interesting about him, I guess, is the fact that he went back to the crime scene.
Yeah.
He went back to the crime scene as a Scotland Yard detective.
Mm-hmm.
And, it makes you think, it makes you wonder, like, because you see it in other killers and stuff like that.
They return to the scene.
They always return to the scene, and so it makes you wonder, like, is that what he was doing in that situation, or maybe he was just being curious, like the other townspeople, but to come back as a Scotland Yard detective and kind of make up that whole elaborate lie about being a Scotland Yard detective, like, did he think that would get him access to more information? And
or see what they knew,
that's
or
what
where
I mean,
they were in the investigation.
Yep. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, there was no physical evidence, no witnesses. It was just his confession. So I think with stuff like that, as much as you want to get justice for the family, a jury should want to reach true justice, which means not just assigning guilt to somebody who's potentially not guilty.
Right.
They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this guy did it. And, if they use questionable interrogation tactics or, whatever, that's got to probably weigh on a jury to some degree, especially if there's no other connecting evidence. So,
Right.
But hey, at least later in life, he found love and got married and
Found a clan.
and found the clan. Hopefully he had a happy life after that until he ended up in the insane asylum.
Yeah. Schizophrenia.
And I was actually researching Islip Hospital because I was like, I wonder how that compares to Norwich State. And they're similar.
Yeah.
But part of that hospital's still open.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right. So what happened to this house? Obviously, everybody's dead, right? There's nobody there to claim the house. So what happened with it? So in the wake of that horrific night on June 9th and 10th, when 8 lives were extinguished in brutal silence within the modest frame house of 508 East 2nd Street in Villisca, Iowa, the building itself became a silent survivor, scarred, abandoned by normalcy, and forever marked by tragedy. For decades after the murders, the Josiah Moore home endured a quiet, uneasy existence. The crime scene was photographed, evidence collected and mishandled, and the house cleaned, but the bloodstains lingered in memory, if not in the floors. Over the next 80 years, it passed through more than a dozen owners, including a stint with the Villisca State Savings and Loan in the 1960s and 70s, perhaps after foreclosure. It stood vacant for long stretches, served as a rental property, and gradually fell into disrepair. Modern conveniences crept in: electricity, indoor plumbing, enclosed porches, vinyl siding. The outbuildings vanished or were replaced, and the once pristine 1912 appearance eroded under the weight of time and ordinary life. By the 1990s, the house had become a dilapidated shell, its dark history overshadowed by neglect. Then, in late 1994, historians Darwin and Martha Lynn purchased the property. Driven by passion for preservation, they embarked on a meticulous, costly renovation using old photographs and historical records. They stripped away modern additions, removing vinyl siding to restore original wood, dismantling enclosed porches, eliminating all electrical wiring and plumbing fixtures to recreate the pre-electric era ambiance. An outhouse and chicken coop were rebuilt in the backyard, and period-appropriate details returned to the home. The effort earned accolades. The house was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1998 and received the Preservation at its Best Award from the Iowa Historic Preservation Alliance in 1997. Under Lynn's stewardship, the Villisca Axe Murder House transformed into a living museum and one of America's most infamous haunted attractions. It opened to the public for daytime tours and overnight stays, drawing true crime enthusiasts, history buffs, paranormal investigators, and the merely curious. Guests walk through dimly lit rooms frozen in time. No lights, no running water, learning the chilling details of the unsolved case while EMF detectors hummed in search of lingering spirits. Reports of footsteps, whispers, children's laughter, and cold spots fueled its reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the country. Darwin Lynn passed away, but Martha continued the operation for years. Then, in late 2023, change arrived once more. Ghost Adventures announced it was under contract to purchase the property from Martha Lynn. The new owners pledged to preserve the house's authenticity while making minor enhancements for visitors, longer guided tours, potential self-guided options via an audio app with narration and photos, and improved guest experiences. After a brief winter closure for any adjustments, the house reopened under their management. As of early 2026, the Villisca Axe Murder House remains open to the public through its official site, murderhouse.com. Daytime tours, self-guided with optional guided private sessions, or EMF rentals are popular, and overnight stays allow guests to spend the night in the very rooms where horror unfolded over a century ago. Recent visitors praised the knowledgeable guides, immersive atmosphere, and the eerie quiet that still seems to hold its breath. The house stands as both a preserved historical artifact and a testament to enduring mystery, unsolved, unrested, and drawing seekers from around the world to confront the shadows of that long-ago June night. In Villisca's small, quiet streets, the white frame house endures, whispering its secrets to those brave enough to listen. So yeah,
It's funny because, well, I guess none of this is funny, but we were talking about.
it can be funny.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about buying a murder house.
Yeah.
Or at least I was talking about it. I was like, man, because I see with Lizzie Borden and obviously the Villisca Axe Murders, and I'm sure there's other ones.
Yeah.
Where these people they buy these houses and then they turn them into museums, and they open them up to the public, and they they, for one, they continue the story, and they continue to teach people about the story, and that the Murder House website, we got some of our information from them for the episode.
Yep.
And it would be cool. It would be cool to go there and walk through and see, what that all looks like.
Yeah.
But
I'm always down for a little history.
Yeah. But I was like, man, it's an interesting thing, an interesting business to get into. I was like, man, we could do that. We could even, I don't know.
They're probably making hand over fist too.
I don't know if it'd be insensitive to do a podcast out of the house, but
Well, they said that podcasters.
do they?
Yeah, they go there.
but
they
yeah,
do like the video, like the paranormal stuff.
yeah.
They do video there and stuff. Yeah.
I don't know. It could be the Chatsui headquarters.
Yeah. Maybe.
But it's
Once we start making money.
it's got to be interesting. Like, imagine doing a restoration.
Yeah.
Like, because there's people that go and do restorations on old houses all the time, but they're just restoring it back to its original look, right? These people are going in to restore it to its original look,
By taking away the electricity.
Yeah.
And the plumbing.
And to make it look like it did when a whole family was slaughtered there.
Right. Yeah.
And that they're trying that, like, that's just it's a different kind of restoration,
Yeah.
And then they won an award for it.
Right.
Hey,
That's great.
You guys did a great job. Where you get the preservation award.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I walked through there, man, it felt like it was they had just been murdered.
Yeah.
I
know. That's what I think we talked about this a while ago. Is like, U.S. history compared to like other histories.
Yeah.
Like European history or whatever. American history, because our country as a whole, relatively speaking, is so young, and it grew so fast that a lot of our history has been erased. We talked about like the Civil War battlefields, and the Revolutionary War battlefields. Now a lot of these places are strip malls.
Right.
It's a parking lot.
Yep.
And it's very rare that you would actually have like an actual preserved site.
Yeah.
Like last year or the year before, I went on my little Civil War battlefield tour, and I'm like, oh, I want to go here, and I want to go here, and I want to go here. I had like 7 places that I wanted to go, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And 3 of them were legit just a sign. Like, oh, wow, this was the battlefield, and you're looking at a freaking IHOP. Yeah. It's like, oh,
well, I guess I got some pancakes.
Well, there we go. Yeah, it's history.
Pancakes.
Yeah.
No.
So it's amazing that they actually take these houses, like the actual house, and
and
bring it back.
And it's
to
probably
its
why
original glory.
It's probably why we're interested in stuff like that. I mean, this one just happens to be about a horrific crime that's been unsolved.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go too far in your own backyard to see that every so often in America we just redo everything.
Yeah.
We get rid of all this stuff and we rebuild for some reason. Quite often, and even like our cities in Connecticut, like if you go back just a generation or so, like they're totally different.
Yeah.
It's this brutalist modern architecture there now, and where it wasn't like that, not that long ago. So it is interesting how in America we tend to do that.
Yeah. And I think like where did I go last year? I went to St. Augustine last year, and they did an amazing job, because St. Augustine, if anybody doesn't know, is the oldest city in the United States.
Yeah, Florida.
The free, like continuously running city.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, they're not going to stop for time. There's new building. There's like new areas and stuff like that. But they have the old city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a schoolhouse that was built in 1500 is still there.
Yeah.
In the same freaking location. So they basically said, nope, we're going to keep this, but we're going to build around it.
Right.
Not rip everything down and make a freaking Dollar Tree.
Yeah, it is, and you can do it. Like you can modernize buildings so that they can be useful,
right,
without destroying them and rebuilding entirely. But we just have a habit of, I think, just looking at stuff going, just take it all out, and
wipe it away,
and rebuild it. But yeah, there are some good,
it comes down to
money. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, restorations are very expensive.
No, I mean like, rip down that old house because I'm going to put up a 54-unit high-rise condo.
Yes. with one income, with one rental assistant.
Yeah.
Apartment, and then the rest are going to be
qualify for the tax breaks.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, there are some good, like the Historical Society, all that stuff. Like they try their best to preserve some of these things. Like in Waterford, we have a little piece of our like a little village that we've preserved. Yeah. And it represents what Waterford was back in the day, when it was incorporated or whatever as a town. Yeah. We have our original schoolhouse. We have a little blacksmith place. There's a couple of actual houses that have been preserved, and we're in the process of preserving another house. But it does cost a lot of money, and it's just a little park, but you got to maintain it, and all that stuff. So and land can be valuable, and sometimes it's more appealing to just sell it and let someone else deal with it. But yeah, no, I think it must have been pretty interesting, pretty fascinating to, especially if you're somebody who's interested in this type of stuff. Yeah. For that family that decided to take on the restoration project, and just go through and look at all of the documents, the history,
the archives,
the photos, and then try to make it, find things, and just do all that work, because it really is an art. Yeah. It's an art form to it. But
I know, a little side note, when I went to Antietam, so they actually did a pretty good job restoring close to what the original battlefield looked like. But in the 1950s, it was pretty much all consumed with like houses, and there was actually a gas station, like right in the middle of the freaking back. You know what I mean? You know, like a little country store, and like people just like, oh, whatever, you know. But yeah, they basically got rid of all that and like restored it back to its original look. Yeah. To, you know, for the most part. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do you think? Do you think if they did solve the murder, like let's just say like tomorrow they solve, they're like, oh, it was George Kelly or it was William Blackie, whatever. Yep. Do you think that would hurt the appeal of it, or do you still think people would go because of the story and everything about it?
I don't think. I think it would just add to it. Yeah. You know,
because it was unsolved for so long, and then finally it got solved. And yeah, maybe it would actually bring more people to it because there'd be more attention.
Yeah, because I just think that adds more to the story. Yeah. Because right now it's just like 8 people went to bed and they never woke up. Yeah. You know, and now that if you have a face to the crime, you can now envision like, oh wow, you know,
and it could actually get kind of wild because like, what if that person did commit all those other crimes? Yeah. You know, and there was a serial killer that was going from town to town to town, you know, and now that house is part of it. So like, I don't know, it probably would make people who are into serial killers and stuff like flock to it even more so, you know? Yeah. Like, oh yeah, this is where Cutthroat came in and smashed their faces in.
Smashed their faces in,
you know? Yeah. But it could it could also just be your need for closure. Yeah. But
I think for me, knowing who did it and understanding why they did it, and a lot of the psychopathy behind it, if that's a word. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. You know, like covering their faces, covering the mirror, you know, because we talked about it, you know. They don't look at me. I don't want to look at myself, blah, 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 you know. There's like a whole like thing behind it.
I want to
know who it was and why they reacted that way.
And I want, like, I'm curious as to why, like, especially like the lantern, like what was the point of that? You know, there's or the mirrors, covering the mirrors, or the bodies or whatever. Yeah. You know, did they, I mean, obviously they'd be dead by now probably, but so even if we did discover who it was, but maybe they left a journal or something. Yeah. You know? Right.
Yeah, because my whole thing with true crime is like, could, like, you know, we were talking before, like, it could happen to anybody at any moment or whatever. All it takes is just like, you know, a glance. Yeah. And somebody could be like, oh, I'm going to kill them. You know, for me, it's the psychology behind it. Like, why did you do this? Yeah. Like, what led you to this point?
How did you have, like, not only, what led you to this point and how did you do it, but like, what drove you to be able to do it? Yeah. Like, to have the ability, like, because, you know, like, anyone can sit here and be like, oh, yeah, I can kill anybody, blah, 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 whatever. Right. No, like, that's not, like, that's not true for most people. You're not going to just kill some random people.
Right. Especially like something up close and personal, like a stabbing or bashing somebody's skull until you can't even recognize their face anymore.
Like, there's got to be something in you that's giving you that ability, I guess. You know, like, it's like, it's one thing if it's
to be able to shut off your brain to humanity.
If it's like, it's one thing, I think it's easier for people to wrap their minds around the idea of doing something like that if they're protecting themselves. Like, that's instinctual. Like, you just, you know, it's just ingrained in us. Yeah. Like every creature, right? If a dog's under attack or whatever, they're gonna do whatever they have to try to survive, whether it's run away or fight back or whatever. You know, so there's that, or protecting someone you really care about, things like that. Like that. That's I feel like that's different. But like, to just these people did nothing to anybody other than be, it seems like good citizens in a community.
Potentially have an affair.
Or potentially, yes, But, and steal some business. But, you know, even that, like, whatever.
That's all speculation.
You don't get murdered for that, you know? But to just go and see somebody, like, and not only that, like, see them at church. Yeah. You know, just living their lives, doing right by everyone, it seems. Yeah. And then just be like, all right, I'm just going to go in cold and kill these people, brutally kill these people. Like that, there's something, I don't know.
And not only that, you didn't even show up with a murder weapon. You just went in, you took their axe.
You took their axe.
You showed up empty-handed. Yeah. And was like, oh, here's an axe. Now I'm going to bash their heads in. Yeah. You know?
And so, like that is, there's something about it. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't, for people who aren't like wired that way. Like, I think it makes some sense to want to come to some kind of an understanding of why that is, why people can do that, for hopefully for good reasons, you know, but you know, to understand and maybe prevent these things from happening in the future. You know, identify what brings people to be able to do things like this. But you know, like, that's, I can see why people would gravitate to this kind of material for that type of understanding, even knowing that we may never have that understanding.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, there is a mystique to it also.
So do you want to stay at the Villisca Axe Murder House?
Would I stay there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like I was saying earlier, you can't sleep in the beds or anything. You got to bring like a sleeping bag.
Oh, it's even better.
Yeah.
You want
sleeping bag.
You want to be on the floor where the blood was getting soaked into it. And, you know? Yeah.
It'd have to be during the summer because I don't know about using an outhouse in the middle of winter.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. For one, I hate the cold. So I
don't mind sleeping in a sleeping bag, but I do enjoy my, you know, creature comforts, you know.
So maybe
my first world comforts.
I need a toilet with running water. And Jesus, man, I don't know how they live down here.
I need to charge my phone, you know. I don't know.
I just want to reenact the pleasant, you know, the pleasantness of what we described earlier in the episode, that when we got to know the Moores and go through their day.
Oh yeah.
I was, you know, I want to wake up and come down to you making breakfast. And,
and the chickens clucking,
and, you know. Yeah. And then Mary's over, the neighbor is just
putting her laundry up.
Yeah, and I can just yell at her and be like, "Stop being so nosy.
Yeah.
Nobody hangs their laundry at 5 a.m. Yeah. You're not fooling anyone, Mary. Leave us alone." No, thank you, Mary, for all that you've done.
Yeah, she kicked it off.
Yeah, we should make it a point at some point to go and do something like that.
Yeah,
like pick a house and just for content for the show, like not just you know.
Well, like I said, I mean, Lizzie Borden's like not
far. Yeah,
like not even an hour away.
So yeah, maybe we'll do
we'll do a Lizzie Borden
episode, and then take a trip up there and go see what that's about. But yeah, that would be cool.
Do like a video tour.
Yeah, and I think if people want to see us do that, they should let us know.
Yeah.
Or if they have any ideas of.
Although a lot of places like that, you have to ask permission
to film.
Yeah. Because when I went to go to Mount Vernon, George Washington's house, they won't let you record.
Really?
Yep. You can't record.
Huh.
Nope.
But it would be cool to go and see one of these things, and you know, as morbid as it sounds, it'd be kind of cool to do a restoration of something like that.
Right.
You know. Mm-hmm. So if anybody knows about any murder houses in Connecticut that is dilapidated, that we can restore and maybe turn into our studio one day.
Right.
You know, well, we could do a GoFundMe.
Yeah. We want to buy Michael Ross's house. So that'll do it for this episode of the Villisca Axe Murder House. Thank you all for hanging out with us. If you found what you heard interesting, go to Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review or comment on the episode. Once again, I am Dave Jari.
I'm Casey Moore.
And we are out of here. See ya.